Okay. Nice. Okay. I think the councilman, yeah, I think the councilman should do. Okay. All right, thanks. Hey, what's up? Hi, guys. All right, so Portland tonight. We're leading with whatever is happening in Portland right now. Are you guys watching the news on NBC News now as you watch us here? Give me 2 seconds. I need to fire everything up here, and then I'll kind of brief you guys in on what's going down. Yeah, more bad news. Sorry. It's always chaotic these days. Jeez.
While criticizing the Trump administration, Governor Tim Walz seemed to take a major swipe at First Assistant U.S. Attorney.
Yikes. All right. So, let's see. No more bad news, please. Hello, hello, hello. Hi from the UK. Hello, Peter. All right. For those of you that are watching here in the United States, we've got some more breaking news that we'll be hitting in just a little bit. It is another shooting, another ICE-involved shooting, it appears, or Border Patrol-involved shooting. Federal agents, we understand, may have shot 2 people in Portland, Oregon today. And so we are waiting more details, but we understand a man and a woman in Portland, Oregon were shot, and we're hoping for some updates in the next hour or so. So this comes on the heels of what we saw yesterday in Minnesota. There are protests happening across the country right now. Protests in Minnesota, protests happening in New York. We were just talking to somebody outside of the White House in Washington. There's a sizable protest there. And so we should see some more information coming out about Portland momentarily. But so far, that's where we start. Yeah. Never a slow, good news day these days. It always seems like something's happening. Give me a second here. Wow, so there are 2 separate crime scenes? Some kind of medical facility? Interesting. That's weird. Okay. And then the KGW feeds, Lise, are they showing anything right now? Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm waiting for the headline. America is.
Hey, Gotti. Darren again. So we're not going to get a stage manager until after top stories clear.
All right. Somebody is asking, what is this multi-view? I'm so glad you asked. So ordinarily, this doesn't even start until 5 o'clock, which is in 9 minutes here on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. But we usually just throw up the stream a little bit early and have a little chat before the show. Right now, I have to read in on a couple of things. But if this is the first time that you've ever seen this, my name is Gotti Schwartz. I am a correspondent and an anchor here at NBC News. I've got a show at 5 o'clock here in Los Angeles, 8 o'clock in New York, and it's called Stay Tuned Now. And you can catch it on anything you watch TV on. So like Samsung, Roku, Amazon, you name it, just look for NBC News Now and you'll see a news show that looks similar to this, but not quite the same. What we've been toying around with is the idea that maybe we do a news show where we're doing the news and I'm communicating with my team, and I'm also communicating with you guys as much as I possibly can. What could go wrong, right? Just open up the chat and see what people think. I love seeing what people think. I love seeing all the takes. spicy, not spicy. Some of them are wonderful. Some of them are mean. But it really gives me a sense of how people see the things that we're talking about. So from my perspective, I just feel free to weigh in on how you see things. And if you could, maybe don't attack each other. But we love to see a lot of dialogue. Now, you see Lisa popping in here. It's so cool,
I'm
Lisa.
sorry. I'm trying to mute myself, and it's not letting me.
So that's Lisa Crivelli. Lisa Crivelli is the executive producer. She's out there in New York. And so half of my team is out in New York, and then here, production, we are in Los Angeles, and we are part of a very, very big news organization, NBC News. Have you ever heard of it? Yeah, so we've got people in Washington, we've got people in New York, and then we've got bureaus all throughout the country. But the idea of this show is, as it gets a little bit later in the East, a lot of people are like, okay, the news is over. It's not. It's only 5 o'clock here. Like, the news is just getting started, as we are seeing today. What up, brother? Good. They hear the IFB on the stream? Got it. Okay. Let's see. It sounds like you guys can hear the IFB on the stream. So I think we're trying to fix it. Can you hear that, Lise? Check, check, check. Anyway, there's a lot of technical stuff that we're working out. Hey, Steven. Hey, look who it is, Lise. Hi, Jess. Hi, Steven. Man, we miss you. Let's see. I could deal with the confusion. Yeah, there's a lot to take in these days. Love the color, really vivid. Thanks. Horrible information. It was all nice. People, yes. Michael Chop. What you're saying there, I agree with. Unfortunately, we as humans are, it is innate in our nature to look to the bad, whether it's cautionary, whether there's an evolutionary reason for it. Our job is to provide the news of what's happening in the world, and you know, I'm a dad of 2 very young kids, and so it's crazy how many cautionary tales I find myself telling them all the time, from everything from traffic to the way that people treat each other to all those things. And when you watch the news, you realize that that's kind of what we do on a very large global scale. So happy 100th anniversary. I didn't know it was our birthday. Okay, great. Miss Tia, hey, good to see you. Great to see you. And we can hear your IFB. And you heard somebody say 5 minutes. Cool. All right, we'll figure that out. Coming on the air with breaking news in 5 minutes. And we're going to start with Portland, then we're going to switch over to what's happening right now in Minnesota. After that, we are going to switch over to the latest with Venezuela. And then we're going to check in on what's happening in Iran, because things have gotten very, very chaotic on the streets of Tehran and around. Hey, Lisa, I think they can hear you in IFB. I think they can hear everything in IFB, so that's pretty interesting. Surprised you're reading chat for a live stream. Yeah, I think so. I think they can hear you. I'm not sure. I think we're working it out. But Alt F4 to rage. Yes, you're totally right. And yeah, the bot comments, I hope they're bots. The ones that are mean, that's what I tell myself. I'm like, it's just a bot. It's just a bot. They don't. But maybe they're not bots. But yeah, we're going to be reading all the comments, as many as I can. Can you send it to me? Okay. Hey, Camila.
You saw the statement?
No, I haven't seen the statement. Let me read it.
So DHS is saying that this is a gang member, Agua.
Oh, really?
They rammed into the same thing.
Interesting. Okay. Here, this is this over here is Camila.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Everybody.
This is the chat. All right, so this is how it works. Right now, we're getting ready to do the show, and in just a little bit, it's going to look very different. It's going to look like a full-on news show. This is the behind the scenes, the multi-view. We're going to give you some of the behind the scenes. That's Camila. She just came in. We are gathering the information on what's happening in Portland right now. And there was just
breaking news. We're trying to figure everything out.
And so we just got a statement from the federal government, and they're saying Tren de Aragua.
Yes, they're saying that the passenger of the vehicle was a target and is a Venezuelan alien affiliated with transnational Tren de Aragua prostitution ring.
Oh, okay.
And involved in a recent shooting in Portland.
Wow. All right. I see the graphic here. Interesting. All right, so you guys are getting a sneak peek before the news starts here, but let's just all read it together. Yeah, okay. All right. And then are we doing that? Yep, I got it here. And we've got it up on the screen, Lise. Are we doing this in the A1, or are we going to do that with Camila?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And then we do have Portland City Council member
Yes,
Jamie
I have
Dunphy?
it with me.
Okay, we're gonna the statement.
Do the
Yep.
statement,
Okay,
yes.
perfect. All right, let's see. Okay. And then where do we get out where do we get out to be, Lisa? Yeah. Is it after Greenland still, or after Iran? After Iran. Okay. All right. So we are 1 minute away from the top of the news show. And if you're just joining us and you're trying to figure out what is going on and what this black is over here and who's this, my name is Gadi Schwartz. I'm a correspondent and anchor here at NBC News. You're about to watch Stay Tuned Now, and you're about to see it behind the scenes. If you have any TV with streaming, you can check out NBC News and watch it in its full television glory, or you can continue to watch it right here with us on TikTok, YouTube, wherever you're watching. Okay.
Stay in the dust, right?
Got it. And in 30 seconds, you're going to see the show pop up. So I'm going to just focus in. And during commercial breaks, I'll try to weigh in on the chat. So let's chat in a little bit.
Stand by.
And we are coming on the air with breaking news. Police in Portland, Oregon are investigating a shooting involving federal agents. Details are just coming in the last few minutes. And according to police, 2 people have been hospitalized after a shooting that happened just after 2 o'clock this afternoon, local time. That was about 3 hours ago. And investigators say there are 2 separate crime scenes several miles apart. One where that shooting happened at some sort of medical facility, and another where officers later found the victims at an apartment complex. Let's bring in Camila Bernal, who is following the very latest for us here in the studio. Camila, what is the latest, and what are we hearing about the people that were shot?
So there's very limited details at the moment, Gadi, because we are hearing from the local police department, and the local police department is saying this is not our investigation. We just heard from the federal government, and they sort of gave us a better picture of what they say happened. But it is important to keep in mind before I read their statement that we don't have video of what happened here. So different as to what we saw in Minneapolis. We saw the video and we were able to essentially narrate everything that happened in Minneapolis. That is not the case this time. So what the federal government is saying here is that it was at 2:19 p.m. Pacific time. Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted vehicle stop in Portland, Oregon. The passenger of the vehicle and the target is a Venezuelan illegal alien affiliated with transnational Tren de Aragua prostitution ring and involved in a recent shooting in Portland. The vehicle driver is believed to be a member of the vicious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. And when the agents identified themselves to the vehicle occupants, the driver weaponized his vehicle and attempted to run over law enforcement agents. So essentially, they're saying it's the same thing that happened in Minneapolis, except in this case, what they're saying is that these people are involved with the gang Tren de Aragua. Again, we don't know what exactly happened because we do not have video. We do know the Portland Police Department says that they found the two people in a separate location and they rendered first aid. It was a man and a woman in a car. And again, the Portland Police saying they're not handling this, but they are confirming the two separate locations. One where the shooting happened, the other where they found these two victims. So we're waiting to see what other officials continue to say and explain. Again, we just have the side of the federal government. We do not have another side of this story. And I do think it's important to point out that there are local officials who are asking people to be calm, who are saying, ICE, again, get out of our city, similar to what you're seeing in Minneapolis. That's what you're seeing from the mayor of Portland. And you're seeing local officials telling people, be calm. We understand that things are sensitive right now because of what's going on in Minneapolis, but they're asking people to just take a step back and wait to see exactly what happened.
Yeah, remember that maybe the headlines seem similar, but the big difference here, we don't have video. We don't see what actually happened. And so we're going to have to wait until we get an update. Any word on when city officials or the federal government may provide a little bit more information?
Within the next hour, hopefully. And I do want to point out also that the Department of Homeland Security is saying that the federal agent feared for his life. So this was not ICE, this was Border Patrol. He feared for his life, and that's when he fired the defensive shot. That's what they say. And then they say that the people in the car drove off, fleeing the scene. And they're even saying the situation is evolving and more information is forthcoming. So hopefully we get more information both from the federal government. We don't know if there was anyone at the scene that recorded video or that was just there and can then talk to whether it's Portland police or the media about exactly what happened. Hopefully we'll get more.
Camila Bernal, thank you so much. Right now I want to bring in Portland City Council member Jamie Dunphy. Thank you so much for being with us. Council member, I know we were just talking to Camila. Information seems very, very limited. There are some similarities on their face, and yet we don't know what happened here between these officers beyond what the federal government says happened. Do you have any insight into the details or the particulars here?
I would really take any information that we have at this point as preliminary, and I wouldn't even take things from the federal government at face value. We have a clear demonstrated pattern of increased aggression from the federal immigration enforcement from across the country, and we have a clear pattern of disinformation coming out of the federal government when they're trying to explain what justification they had for shooting neighbors. And I fear that in this situation, we're looking at a similar situation. So I would encourage your listeners to take any information we have at this point, especially around motives and history of the individuals, with a pretty heavy grain of salt.
Our NBC affiliate in Portland is reporting that the shooting happened as protesters were planning to head to the mayor's office to demand or revoke the permit for the ICE facility in Portland. Is that something that the city council there has been talking about realistically? Is that something that there's a lot of support for?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have a legal process, and I can't legally weigh in on whether or not I support that as a process at this moment. But we have a process because they have, in fact, repeatedly, it seems, violated the terms of their conditional use permit. And we have a formal process for that. It is slow and bureaucratic. It is slowed down by the courts, but we are, in fact, looking at our options to be able to shut down this ICE facility in the city of Portland. However, this shooting took place miles away from this ICE facility. We've obviously had a long past in the last few months here of peaceful protest happening in front of the ICE facility. In fact, at times ridiculous protest in front of the ICE facility. This shooting happened in a residential neighborhood near a hospital on my side of town, on the far east side of Portland. And clearly was not in any way related to protest activity, but we very clearly have a problem with a tyrannical federal government happening in our city. And as the previous reporter said, the city of Portland wants ICE out of Portland.
We're starting to see protests from what happened in Minneapolis across the country today. We're seeing them in New York. We're seeing them in Washington, D.C., in Minneapolis. And now this incident in Portland, what do you anticipate happening in your city?
I expect that Portlanders will take to the streets and show with their voices peacefully. And in many cases, ridiculously that this is not the kind of community that we are living in, that this is not an acceptable way for our federal government to be treating our citizens, and that Portland is a protest city. We are going to be protesting. In fact, I'm going to be going over and meeting a vigil here in about an hour. I expect my neighbors to show up. I expect them to show up peacefully. I expect them to show up the way that we have for the last year, and I expect them to demonstrate what kind of community we are.
And yet Portland has been known for some of those protests to turn violent. Are you expecting any clashes between protesters and federal officials?
You know, 2020, protests turned violent, but that's the first time in any sort of meaningful way that protests in this city have been violent. And Portland earned the reputation of being Little Beirut back in the 80s. We are a protest city. We are not afraid to get out of our homes, you know, create some sort of catchy slogan on a sign and show up wearing a frog costume. I expect more of that. I do not worry that Portlanders are going to turn violent, because violence, we don't meet violence with violence. We meet violence with the kind of city that we are, and we demonstrate with our values what kind of community Portland is.
Councilman Jamie Dunphy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, outrage is growing after that deadly ICE-involved shooting, and frustration over how it's being investigated is boiling over. We've got breaking details tonight about the officer involved. Officer Jonathan Ross has now been identified based on court documents tied to a separate ICE confrontation months ago, and those records also detail a serious injury he suffered during that incident. This is some Ring camera footage obtained by CBS, and it shows Ross being dragged by a vehicle during another ICE operation also in Minneapolis. Ross received more than 30 stitches at the time. The driver in that case was charged with assault on a federal officer. Meanwhile, there are still major questions about exactly what happened yesterday and who will make the critical decisions after the death of Renee Nicole Good. Questions now driving public anger across the Twin Cities.
We locally have the authority to investigate.
We are calling on the Minneapolis Police Department and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office to immediately arrest the ICE agent who killed Renee Good.
We will not stop until justice gets served.
So who gets to investigate when federal officers are involved? Minnesota state investigators say they're being shut out of the case after the FBI took sole control of the review. And now at the center of that review are these camera angles, multiple camera angles captured by witnesses. Here are two of the angles as you see them play out here. This is right before the shooting happened. The officer in the front of that car, 3 shots are fired. You see it from a different angle down the street over here. When this video first picks up, you see what looks like the officer potentially in front of the vehicle. All of this is really something that is being seen differently by so many people across the country, but it's key evidence that now sets up a direct clash between state power and federal power.
Minnesota must be part of this investigation. These are nonpartisan career professionals that have spent years building the trust of the community.
The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous.
In Minneapolis tonight, more protests and some tense clashes with police earlier that led to several arrests. Public schools are closed for the rest of the week, and there are multiple demonstrations underway at this hour. Stephen Romo is in Minneapolis for us tonight. Stephen, it looks like things have definitely calmed down where you are, but what have people been telling you throughout the day?
Yeah, Gotti, the rain tends to calm situations like this down somewhat. People also seem to be heeding what Governor Walz asked them to do earlier, which was to stay calm and not turn violent. He said that could be an excuse for more federal agents to be sent into Minneapolis, which is something that he does not want to happen. But people that I've talked to today, they actually said something very similar to what the Portland City Council member told you just a moment ago, to take what the federal government is saying with a grain of salt. So many people seem to have lost faith in the institutions. Protesters and just people that I was able to talk to this morning out and about in Minneapolis saying that they don't trust the Trump administration to investigate themselves, which essentially is what they say would be happening here if the Minnesota state investigators are being shut out of this process, not able to access the forensics with the vehicle and where the bullet holes are. They aren't necessarily people that are just immediately passing judgment on what happened, but they're upset that it sounds like Secretary Noem and Vice President Vance have already decided that the shooting was justified, and they've already seemed to have decided that Renee Good was purposefully trying to hit that officer before an investigation of any type can be completed. We heard from Secretary Noem that the FBI is investigating. Vice President Vance has said the DOJ is investigating this, but people want, especially people here that are taking to the streets of Minneapolis, want Minnesota to be involved in that investigation. They say that they don't. The people I asked directly, do you think that you'll believe the outcome of this investigation? And they say not unless an outside party, including Minnesota, is a part of it, Gotti.
Yeah, interesting. So they're saying that they don't trust the federal government to be the sole investigator here. What do they want to see happen?
Yeah, originally the belief was that Minnesota state investigators would be a part of this. We heard today Governor Walz saying how common it is for Minnesota state investigators to work with the FBI on an investigation, especially one that is getting as much attention as this one is. And it's making some people, many people, go through exactly as we've done here on Stay Tuned Now, going frame by frame in this video and see what happened. I spoke with a woman just having coffee earlier today who took me frame by frame through the videos, trying to basically investigate herself, to decide herself what happened, because there's not a trust right now that we're getting the full story. And her reasoning was that Secretary Noem said yesterday, just hours after this happened, that this was an act of domestic terrorism. She just could not wrap her mind around how the Secretary of Homeland Security could come to that conclusion before the investigation is complete. That's what many of the protesters, many of that frustration we're hearing is striking those same chords, Gotti.
Yeah, many on all sides looking at this video very, very closely and trying to make up their own minds. Stephen Romo, thank you so much. And Kelly O'Donnell joins us now from the White House. Kelly, we heard J.D. Vance, the vice president today, defending the ICE officer, but what's a broader message from the administration about how this investigation could possibly unfold here?
Well, what was so striking about this, Gotti, is that the vice president effectively made himself the face of the administration argument today. We've certainly seen Secretary Kristi Noem speaking out, but the vice president put himself front and center in a solo briefing and press conference, if you will, at the White House lectern. And he was definitive in his views about what happened and what went wrong. And he ties it to a larger argument the administration has been making for a long time. And it is the Trump administration's assertion that left-wing agitators, a left-wing movement, has been responsible for violence. They called it a sinister movement today. That is something that really stands out, because right now I hear protests right outside the White House gate, anti-ICE protests, no justice, no peace, that kind of chanting going on. And so the administration is saying with such certainty how it views the shooting, the responsibility, putting plenty of blame on the woman who died, saying she brought this on herself. But we don't have all the facts yet. And everyone who's looking at the video, whether citizens or officials, can come up with their own assessments, but there is a federal investigation going on. At the same time, the vice president said he sees the tragedy in this, and he acknowledges that he doesn't really know what the woman was thinking, and yet he still insists that she is responsible and that the officer, the ICE officer, was acting in an appropriate, justified way, and that He wants to see the public support ICE officers and ICE agents who are carrying out the president's mass deportation missions around the country. So it was in many ways about what happened in Minnesota, but broader by tying it to the larger political themes that are happening. And we saw this from Democrats to a great degree as well, as they are reacting with different concerns and less certainty about what happened. In fact, Governor Walz saying there's been a rush to judgment. Gotti?
Yeah, and Kelly, look, I know that there are protests, a lot of protests in front of the White House from time to time. I can't remember the last one that's almost interrupted a live shot. Like, it sounds loud, and I know that you're a ways away and you're closer to the White House, but is it a pretty sizable protest? Can the president or can those in the White House hear what's going on outside?
Well, from my experience, when you are in the White House, in the areas where the president could be right now, you would hear this protest. Now, in fairness, there are protests here on a regular basis. It's part of life in this campus for the president in residence, as well as those of us who come here to do our jobs. But it's notable because it is sizable based on my being able to see it. Of course, it's dark now, so I don't have all of the sense, but I can hear the voices and the chanting, and they've got drums and chanting. Again, free speech is a big part of what happens outside the White House, but certainly the president, I would think, could be able to hear it. The larger questions are, how is the White House treating this sort of protest? They say peaceful protests, fine. What they are arguing is that there is a movement of advice, really, for activists and protesters trying to impede law enforcement. That's where they say there is a bridge too far, and that has the potential for triggering violence, or the kind of what they say is a self-defense response from the ICE agent involved in this shooting. So it's complex, it's emotional, and it is certainly representative of the political divide in the country.
Yeah, those flashpoints seem to be growing. Minnesota, Portland, and we've got the protest in front of the White House tonight. Kelly O'Donnell, thank you so much. And now I want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Missy Maris and retired NYPD Captain John Monaghan, an expert on police procedure. Captain, I want to get your perspective on these videos we've been playing over and over, specifically shot by shot. Now, I know all of this happens in maybe 2-3 seconds here, but I'm sure you've had quite some time to look at all these frames, just like everybody else seemingly in society. You can see those moments, the tires turn. You see the officer at the beginning in front of the vehicle make his way to the side of the vehicle. And then we know that there were 3 shots fired from the sounds of that video. What do you see?
Well, first thing is that cop doesn't know those tires are being turned. It's a slight turn, and he doesn't see that. You know, the courts have decided, and most departments have input a change to the deadly force rules, which is rare. The deadly force standard has been in place for decades. To tweak it is a big deal, and it was tweaked in 2012 to include the phrase professional judgment. For the average citizen to watch this video and then pass judgment isn't helpful. The courts have decided that the judgment is that of an experienced, trained officer. So, and this cop in particular, if you take his experience, he's been dragged before, as we know. He doesn't know that wheel's turned. In that split second, he's not looking down at the tire to say, oh, which way is she turning the wheel? And the first shot, I mean, the first shot goes directly through the windshield. The first video that we look at there, I said this last night, he's not even in the frame. He is directly in front of that truck. You know, listen, if you boil this down to the basic elements, you've got a pedestrian on foot and a vehicle operator commanding a 2,000-pound vehicle. That's what we're facing. He's not even in a frame until the very end. Listen, it was an aggressive, violent act, and the cop was in fear for his life. You know, the standard, I can tell you this, the standard throughout the industry is you don't shoot at a moving vehicle. That is the standard. There is an exception to that rule. There has to be in the real world with deadly force. And the exception is if you feel your life is in imminent danger, then you have to take whatever reasonable measures are available to you. That's what it looks like here happened.
And this is one of those things where, you know, we're all looking at it and we're all coming to conclusions based on where everyone's coming from. And yet, at the end of the day, the only real opinion at first that's going to matter is that of a potential prosecutor if it gets there, right? So Misty, jumping straight into the big question of jurisdiction and the federal supremacy clause. Are the locals' hands completely tied here with access to the evidence in this case? And is this going to be a federal case no matter what?
So, Gotti, they're not completely tied to ultimately bring a prosecution, but it would be fraught with a lot of challenges. And that's because of, as you said, the supremacy clause. And that says that federal officers, when they're acting in the course of their duties, cannot be prosecuted by state or at the state or local level in a criminal case. But that is what's called a qualified immunity, not blanket immunity. So the question is, were they acting in the course of their official duties? And the second part of that is, what was their action necessary and proper? Was it reasonable under the circumstances? So we get right back to that analysis John was just talking about, whether or not there's a legal justification. So it's super fact sensitive, and there's a lot of cases that ultimately federal court would be the right jurisdiction, but it's possible that a state court case could move forward.
And Captain, as a former law enforcement officer, we see the portrayals in Hollywood on what happens when the feds come in and then there's this jurisdiction fight. But what does it normally look like in the real world versus what we could be seeing here?
We have a firearms discharge review board in New York City. Now, if a state trooper was involved in a shooting in Manhattan, we would not put that case before our FDRB. The state police would scrutinize their own cop. That's just how it works. And what Misty said was very well stated. Legally, prosecution-wise, that's going to be a separate issue. But as far as policy and the scrutiny by the professionals of the department of that cop. Now, this guy's a Fed. The cop is a Fed. His people should do that scrutiny. They should conduct their own firearms discharge review and decide. And, you know, Misty makes a really good point also. Policy is one thing. The law is something else entirely. The law allows for broader actions than usually police policy is much more narrow. I can tell you, I had an incident like this myself. I shot a car. It was a long story, right over on the FDR Drive here in New York City. And the district attorney, we went down to the grand jury. I testified. We indicted the driver of that car on a first-degree charge. The police department wasn't too happy with me. There was no discipline, but there was retraining and there was some talking about it. So the law and police policy are two different things, and it really should be the department of the officer that scrutinizes the discharge as far as policy. Legally, as Misty said, it's going to get complicated.
Interesting. And Captain, one more question.
I
wanted to ask. Yeah. We're also seeing, and we don't have video at all on what's happening in Portland right now, but we live in a day and age in which information flies so quickly. Yesterday, when this was happening in Minnesota, we were seeing those videos come out almost in real time. And now we are also seeing in Portland the federal authorities putting out some information that they say claims that the people that were involved may have been affiliated with Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang. And there is a lot of information that is front-loaded on these investigations. I've been covering this kind of stuff a long time. And in the past, it's normally been, well, this is under investigation. We can't comment because this is under investigation. The investigation is only starting. Do you see, Captain, that changing in this day and age?
To an extent, because, you know, there's more information than what the department is going to let out. People have cameras. There are people in the vicinity that are going to communicate to the media facts and information that they have. You're not relying entirely on the investigators to keep you apprised. You're going to get more information than what they just have. So, I mean, that's one thing about today's day and age, for sure. The thing in Portland, obviously, it's very different. If now, as you say, this is a gang member, this is not a protester, it is very different. The scrutiny of a shot fired, there's no difference. Again, I say strip it down to the man is a pedestrian and you've got a vehicle operator. Let's just stick with those facts and look at the justification of the shooting. That doesn't change incident to incident. Politically, culturally, everything else, of course it changes. This woman was a protester, and the other guy in Portland, if the reports are accurate, is a violent gang member. I don't understand how people can support that. A violent gang member resisting law enforcement, it just flies in the face of the rule of law in a civilized society. But of course, Minneapolis is different because the driver of the vehicle is a different kind of person. Sure, that makes a difference.
Yeah, we'll continue to wait for more details, and hopefully we'll get those within the hour. John Monaghan, Misty Maris, thank you so much. Appreciate your perspective. And from the federal supremacy questions to questions of presidential war powers, what we are seeing right now play out in Congress is all about the war powers when it comes to Venezuela. Today, the Republican-controlled Senate voted 52-47 to advance a war powers resolution, and that would prevent Trump from pursuing further military action against Venezuela without congressional approval. But they are still a far, far cry away from a final vote to actually pass that bill. And even if it does pass, this is what Vice President J.D. Vance is saying.
It's not going to change anything about how we conduct foreign policy over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, and that'll continue to be how we approach things.
Now let's get out to NBC News correspondent, senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, who is in Colombia, Bogota tonight. Gabe, we're going to get to the war powers resolution thing in just a second, but you're in Colombia, and talk about some diplomatic whiplash. Just a few days ago, President Trump said launching a military operation against the Colombian president sounded good to him. Now it seems like he's inviting President Petro to the White House. What's the reaction there tonight?
Yeah, you're right, Gotti. It is whiplash. And really, the reaction here is a sense of relief to this dramatic de-escalation. And you're right, it was just a few days ago that President Trump was referring to Gustavo Petro as, quote, a sick man. And Petro just 2 days after that said that President Trump had a, quote, senile brain. And it all led up to this phone call yesterday, Gotti, this phone call between Petro and President Trump. We understand the Colombians had made some outreach to Republican members of Congress and tried to get this under control, to have them help mediate a phone call between Petro and Trump, which the Colombians had been wanting for quite some time, but hadn't been able to get it. But because of this escalation, they employed these members of Congress to try and get the White House, to try and get the president on the phone. And that phone call happened right before these nationwide demonstrations yesterday that Petro had called for to essentially protest the U.S. actions in Venezuela. Well, President Trump, you saw in that social media post, said that it was an honor to talk to Petro, said that it was he appreciated his tone, and even invited Petro to the White House, which the Colombian government says they're working on the logistics for that. So overall, just an incredible de-escalation days after that ramped up rhetoric, really from both sides, got it.
Wow, it is wild to see. I mean, tension somehow bringing two leaders closer together, at least for the time being. It's a wild time. And then back here at home, there's this war powers resolution. We know that Trump has already criticized the Republicans that broke and voted with the Dems on this one. But the statement from the vice president, it's pretty stark here. Can the administration continue to act pretty unilaterally here?
Look, you heard that from the vice president today, Gotti. Yes, the administration is brushing this off. And look, even though, the Senate, 5 Republicans joined Democrats in the Senate to advance this resolution, it's still very unlikely to pass the House. And even if it somehow did, the president would still need to sign it. So it won't become law. But it still sends a message. And yes, some observers here are thinking, is this potentially some cracks within the Republican Party? The administration does not see it that way. They just, view this as really they're just brushing this off. Their policy in Venezuela, as we heard the president tell the New York Times, this will go on for much more than a year, according to the president. And it appears that they're just getting started to make changes in Venezuela and to control that country's oil.
Yeah, much more than a year. I mean, he told the New York Times that the United States could be running Venezuela for years, and I believe that the only thing that can stop him is, quote, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. I don't need international law. I mean, this is all uncharted territory. What else are we learning here about his vision for both Venezuela and the American military, given we just saw a big increase in military spending, or at least a proposal, right?
Look, Right. Well, look, the president walks a fine line there. He says he doesn't need international law, and then, a few lines later, according to that New York Times interview, he says that he would abide by international law. But Gadi, overall, the administration is really trying to make the case that it is America first, even though its critics, and especially some on the MAGA wing of the party, are making the argument that this isn't America first, that the U.S. is getting entangled in too many foreign conflicts. The president is making the argument that everything is in the national interest of the United States. And just yesterday, he signed a memorandum directing the U.S. to withdraw from 67 international bodies, many of them associated with the United Nations. So clearly, the president feels emboldened here, especially after this stunning raid in Venezuela's dramatic capture of Nicolas Maduro. And he, at the moment, plans to go at it alone. And you're right, seems to be brushing off international law, at least in some cases, or at least arguing that he doesn't really need to abide by it, depending on the situation.
NBC's Gabe Gutierrez in Colombia tonight. Gabe, thank you. Meanwhile, the White House is making it clear one way or another they want Greenland. Here's what Vice President Vance said about it earlier.
I guess my advice to European leaders and anybody else would be to take the President of the United States seriously. So what we're asking our European friends to do is to take the security of that landmass more seriously, because if they're not, the United States is going to have to do something about it. What that is, I'll leave that to the President as we continue to engage in diplomacy with our European friends and everybody on this particular topic.
Now, there are a lot of ideas on the table. Reuters is reporting that they're even considering sending lump sum payments to Greenlanders to sweeten the deal, though NBC News has not independently verified that report. But whatever way the United States goes about it or doesn't go about it, Greenland officially is doubling down on saying they are not interested. Here is what a rep of the country said earlier.
Greenland is not for sale. It's a very, very proud country, and we are part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and we are very proud of that.
Now let's bring in Professor Rachel Lorna Johnstone from the University of Akureyri, Iceland. Professor, thank you so much for being with us. What do you make of the White House's insistence that Greenland is crucial to U.S. national security?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. The United States has recognized that Greenland is central to its own military security since at least World War II, and has in fact had a military presence there since then. After World War II, that was all agreed with the Danes, and then later it's a trilateral agreement, including also the Greenland government. So the United States has long had a presence in Greenland. They've never been stopped from engaging in any of their military security operations, including defense training and surveillance. So I think we can see from the map that you just showed how crucial Greenland is in the North Atlantic.
Yeah, Greenland is a semi-autonomous Danish territory. Can you just walk us through how that works?
Okay, so Greenland was a colony of Denmark, just like Hawaii and Alaska were in 1945 when the US and Denmark joined United Nations. In 1953, Greenland was incorporated into Denmark, so it became a county of Denmark under the new Danish constitution. Then in 1979, Greenland got home rule, which meant for the first time they had their own elected parliament and government in Greenland, which was responsible for internal domestic affairs in Greenland. But in 2009, they got a self-government agreement, which gives them much more extensive powers, including powers to control the underground, so the mining reserves, the oil and gas, potentially. But it also sets out a pathway for the Greenlanders as a people in international law with a right to self-determination. So it sets out a system where the Greenlanders have the power to make their own decisions about their future, their constitutional relationship with Denmark or with anyone else going forward, including a pathway to independence as a state.
And I know you can't speak for the people of Greenland, but historically, has Greenland been pretty happy with that arrangement?
As you say, I can't speak on behalf of Greenland. I certainly can't talk over a 70, 80-year or
totally
even
fair.
300-year history.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this instead. Sorry, let me ask you this instead. If all of a sudden the United States did come up with a bunch of money and started to the tune of $500,000 to maybe $1 million each Greenlander, there's 56,000 1,000 Greenlanders, so $56 billion. What kind of impacts do you think that would have on Denmark, on the EU, and on Greenland? Just the offer alone.
Yeah, the offer alone, I think many Greenlandic political leaders would find quite insulting, given that the message has been loud and clear since 2019 that Greenland is not for sale. Bypassing any kind of democratic process to pay money, to basically bribe an electorate in another country is such a breach of all the kind of norms of democratic governance that, in fact, the United States has historically stood up for. I mean, I don't know where this proposal is coming from. I don't know if it's government or non-governmental. But I would think also your own constitutional checks and balances, as much as they still exist, would also stand in the way of that happening.
Professor Johnstone, really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you so very much. And now to the latest out of Iran, where growing protests seem to be reaching a fever pitch. Tens of thousands of people in the streets, buildings burning, and the country almost completely shut off from the internet as the Iranian regime tries to crack down some of this unrest. Now, these are some of the metrics that we are watching from the internet watchdog NetBlock, showing this near total block in connection levels overnight. That happened around noon Iran time. The shutdown appears to be the worst hit country since last June during Iran's brief war with Israel. These demonstrations started in Tehran, Iran's capital, last month over the country's economic crisis, but this may be the worst things have gotten since. Today, protesters were seen tearing apart an Iranian flag in the city of Mashhad. And take a look at some of the other scenes we're seeing. Now, that last video appearing to show a civilian car ramming into security forces in the city of Mashhad. An Iranian human rights group is reporting at least 45 protesters, including 8 children, have been killed and over 2,000 people arrested over the last 12 days. Today, the president, while speaking on the Hugh Hewitt show, said that if, quote, Iran starts killing people, they will be, quote, hit very hard. And NBC's Middle East contributor Houman Majd joins us now. Great to see you. Houman, can you just kind of, how did we get here? We've seen protests before in Iran, but the ones that we're seeing now, they've been going on for almost 2 weeks. Where did the flashpoint start here?
Well, the flashpoint was really the economy. I mean, the collapse of the Iranian rial, the Iranian currency, caused many people in Iran to just realize that there's really no hope for the economic situation to get any better. And it started in the bazaar, the traditional marketplace where merchants sell their goods and who are heavily reliant on foreign currency. And this drop in value caused the initial wave of protests among the Bazaris, who happened to be the most loyal of the Islamic regime's supporters, to say we can't handle the situation anymore. And then it devolved into obviously anti-regime, anti-government protests, because people are just fed up. They can't afford eggs, they can't afford meat. The average person, their salaries just do not keep up with inflation, do not keep up with the economic situation, and there doesn't appear to be any hope, unlike protests in the past, where people were like, it would fizzle out after a while if there were anti-regime protests and the government would put them down. Now people feel like they almost don't have anything to lose, because, I mean, what else can happen? They can't afford food, they can't afford to live, they have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. So it's really reached a sort of dead end, and there's no real kind of like light at the end of the tunnel, as it were.
And today we're starting to see these calls from the exiled Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. He's calling for protests today. Again, this has been happening for weeks.
Yes.
My question is, do you see him as a unifying figure in all of this? Or do the Iranians that are protesting right now in Tehran and across the country want something else?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, he definitely has supporters. He definitely has people who follow him inside Iran and obviously outside of Iran, no question about it. And he was the one who called for people to come out tonight at 8 p.m. Tehran time. And they did in large numbers. Now, whether they came out because they support him or because they saw it as an opportunity to make a big statement about how dissatisfied they are, it's hard to say. It's also hard to say what the actual numbers are. But yes, I mean, he has a significant amount of support, a nostalgic support for the time of the Shah, certainly. But there's also people who are anti-monarchists. There's people who are pro-MEK, the Mujahideen. There are people who want a republic, who want a democracy. So it's really hard to say exactly whether he could be a unifying figure. So far, he hasn't been in the last, at least, 47 years in exile. He hasn't been able to unify all the disparate opposition parties together. However, at this particular moment, his name is valuable for a lot of protesters. And if he calls for people to come out, clearly it was successful in the sense that people did come out last night. I mean, tonight, I should say, in Tehran, in big numbers.
And then there's the question of these blackouts and the limited information that's being disseminated inside of Iran. We've seen similar ones to this before, but what does it signal to you that all of a sudden in large parts of Iran, the internet is gone?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the Iranian government has a playbook. Ever since 2009, the Green Movement, where it was the first time where high-speed internet was really widely available in Iran. Cell phones were widely available. I mean, smartphones, I should say, were widely available. And people were able to, get information out to each other, be able to get videos out onto social media. Back then it was called the Twitter revolution, if you remember, in 2009, the Green Movement. And the Iranian government since then has, every single time there has been unrest, an uprising of any sort, has cut the internet off, basically, at precisely the time, because they know that that is something that gets people out on the street. The more information is shared, the more people get, riled up, as it were. So that's just the playbook. I expect the internet to go back to normal in the next 24 or 48 hours.
Yeah, we shall
depending
see.
on how much the unrest continues.
Yeah, definitely chaotic times right now. Human, thank you so much for your insight. And don't go anywhere. Up next, there's this wild story in Pennsylvania where a man was arrested after police found more than 100 human remains in his home that he had been allegedly stealing from graves for months, what we're learning. Plus, a Reddit post goes viral for calling out a food delivery app for mistreatment, except the story was fake, and with some AI-generated content, how it managed to fool a lot of the internet later this hour, so stay tuned. All right, okay. This is why the chat is enabled, because now we've got 2 minutes to talk. But man, why are you guys being so mean to each other? Holy smokes. Yeah, let's just not dehumanize each other and, keep things civil. But this is a very confusing time, and we need to learn how to have difficult discussions where people see things differently, and yet, have the same information. So that's that's what I'm hoping for. I don't know. It's probably, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But let's see here. I'll love you guys back, those that are being nice. Yeah, and I think there were some pretty good questions, but there's so much going on. I have lost track. I think there were some really good questions about Venezuela, and there were some interesting questions about Minnesota. Let's see. Is this guy is MSM mainstream media? Murder House. Yes. I'm NBC News. We are, right here, giving you the mainstream news from one of the largest media organizations on planet Earth. We've got first-person reporting from all over the globe, and as much as people hate the mainstream media, a lot of times what they're talking about comes from the mainstream media. So you're getting it from the source. Unless you meant MSM for something else, then I apologize. Let's see, I'm doing, Jay, been better. Yikes, Tina, thank you, but Argentina, ojime, Dad. All right, we've got more news coming up, so stay tuned. Here we go. I'm going to go back to the full show.
5, 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. We've got this crazy story out of the Philadelphia area where human remains have been going missing from cemeteries, and investigators now have this suspect who they say had more than 100 human remains at his home. NBC 10's Deanna Duarte has the story.
It is truly, in the most literal sense of the word, horrific.
Delaware County District Attorney Tanner Rouse says so far investigators do not know what the purpose of stealing bodies, skeletons, and skulls was, but says this man, Jonathan Gerlach, was caught leaving the Mount Moriah Cemetery on January 6th with human remains.
This happened, as you guys will see in the complaint, under the cloak of darkness, very much secreted from public view. This guy did everything in his power to secretly and silently grave rob.
Gerlach lives in Lancaster County, a home investigators have searched.
Over 100 human skeletons were recovered, and that's in part, at this point, we are still trying to figure out how many of those are complete and what exactly we are looking at. A separate storage locker was found to be in Mr. Gerlach's possession. That also was in Ephrata. We found there 8 more human remains. Very simply, detectives have recovered an awful lot of bones at this point, and we are still trying to piece together who they are, where they are from, and how many we are looking at.
It's unclear why Gerlach police say was taking human remains, some laid to rest more than 100 years ago. Others, they say, died recently.
There's one that had a pacemaker still attached to the body.
The DA says they are looking at Gerlach's online community and his social media groups. They say this is his picture on this Facebook page and want to know if people were buying, selling, or trading remains. Longtime police say this is a case they've never encountered before.
This is probably the most horrific thing that I've seen.
Gerlach is being held in the Delaware County Prison, charged with more than 100 criminal counts. And sources say while he has given investigators some information, there is still a lot more they want to know. They are looking at his social media activity, social media groups he belonged to, and they say they want to know if anyone out there could have been buying, selling, or trading body parts. So if you have any information, you want to call Yeadon Police or the Delaware County District Attorney's Office. In media, Deanna Durante, NBC 10 News.
Yeah, you do. Deanna, thank you so much. And coming up, some wild video of the moment a man steals and tries to run over a police officer with a bulldozer. What went down there? Just ahead. Okay, Kevin, I think Kevin was the one that said this. We can all agree on that, right? Yes, that is perfectly said. We're all on the same page on the last story. Because, sheesh, right? Yeah, that is wild. And then this bulldozer story is pretty wild too. This is Nevada, right? Whew. Ooh, Alan, actually, you know what? Fact checking us right here. That he's right. We're wrong. Ooh, I think we messed that up. Lise, he says it's not a bulldozer, it's a front loader. Like, that is true. I know that because I have a book about this for Rio at home. And that is definitely a front. Okay, Alan, yeah, I don't know if.
1 minute.
Okay.
Standing.
We're going to update this intro real fast. It may not be in the piece, but Alan, you're fact checking us, man. Thank you so much. Wow. And then oil, crazy stuff coming out of Nevada. Alan, thank you. You got our back, man. Okay. Are we standing here?
Yep.
Okay.
45.
Is front loader 2 words? Alan, is it 2 words or 1 word? AP style. All right, let's see here. Man, Alan, front loader dozer. What? Oh, now. Oof.
20.
Okay. Let me see here. Good. Alan does deserve an NBC mug. Monkey Beast. Everybody's talking about these NBC mug.
5, 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. This next story out of Nevada is wild. Police releasing video showing officers shooting at a man who drives at them with this front-end loader right after allegedly stealing it from a construction site. NBC's Steve Patterson has that story.
Tonight, police standing off against 20 tons. It started at this construction site in Henderson, Nevada. Sunday morning, an eyewitness spotting a man hopping a fence, and police say hot wiring heavy machinery.
I have a guy trying to steal a bulldozer.
Moments later, an officer arrives on scene, but with the bulldozer now barreling toward her squad car. That 911 caller looking on in disbelief.
Oh my God, my morning.
The officer opening fire. But the suspect, identified as 33-year-old Juan Rincon Carreño, keeps going.
And he just destroyed a police car.
As Rincon Carreño crushes the cruiser, another unit arrives on scene, opening fire. 2 officers taken down, falling with the suspect some 7 feet before making an arrest. Rincon Carreño was hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries after being shot twice. Now facing multiple charges, including 2 counts of attempted murder. NBC News reached out to local public defenders, but has not heard back yet. The 2 responding officers placed on administrative leave per department policy. And thankfully unscathed from the dangers of heavy machinery on the job. Steve Patterson, NBC News.
What an ending to that. Steve Patterson, thank you so much. And still to come, why they've got a Crew 11 mission in space. It's getting cut short after an astronaut gets sick aboard the ISS. We've got the details of that, so stay tuned. Front end loader versus a cop car? Yikes. And Alan, thank you. Front end loader, right? Anyway. That was a team effort, collaborative. Thank you, guys. For sure, very disturbing. Let's see, go to bed. I wish, I would love to. We've got a lot more coming, though. He wasn't driving a Honda Pilot. Yeah, I mean, kind of, yeah. Jessica, I take that back. I haven't seen the whole video. Going to miserable home. Okay, we got 90 seconds. All right, coming up in just a bit, we're going to be talking about this mystery on board the ISS. Somebody got sick enough that Crew 11 is coming back down from the International Space Station. So I think Tom Costello's got a piece on that. And then at the top of the next hour, we are going to check in to see what is the latest out of Portland. Okay. Good here?
Perfect. Great.
All right, here we go. And then in this next shot, when you guys see this iPad, that's this camera right here. This is the iPad. And so this is where we hang out. Just know that anytime you see the iPad, that is you guys here in the studio with us.
45.
Cheers to Alan for the quick update. Greetings from Chiapas. Hey. Fragile Minds rock. Cool. This moment. We will. Don't worry. Verdun, we definitely will. We're not keeping our eyes off that. Yeah, right? How fast we can get astronauts back down to Earth? Well, yes, and complicated and nuanced, but we'll talk about it in just a bit. Hold on.
7, 5, 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. NASA's Crew 11. They are going to be leaving the International Space Station earlier than scheduled because of some sort of medical issue. NBC's Tom Costello has more.
Hey, Gotti, good evening. So we became first aware that something was up yesterday. The Japanese astronaut on board the space station called down to Mission Control asking to have a consult with one of the flight surgeons. They then went into a private mode and had a conversation. Then early this morning, NASA announced it was going to be bringing the crew home. Crew 11, 4 astronauts, because of a medical situation involving, I should say, one of them. We don't know which one, and we don't know what the medical situation is due to privacy laws. The 4 members of Crew 11 are the following: Commander Zena Cardman, pilot Michael Fink. He is also the commander of the space station. We've also got the Japanese astronaut Kamiya Yui and the Russian Oleg Platonov. Now, all four were on Crew 11. They launched back in August. They were supposed to come home in February, but now NASA has decided because one of them needs medical treatment, they are going to be coming home over the coming days. And NASA said specifically, the chief medical officer at NASA said that there was a real risk to leaving the astronaut on the station, suggesting that he or she needs to be back down on the ground for a full diagnostic evaluation and treatment on the ground. Now, this is the first time ever NASA has ended a mission prematurely because of a medical situation involving an astronaut, right? An astronaut on the station or on a spaceship. So they need to get that astronaut back on the ground and they need to do the full evaluation. We do not know exactly what the medical condition is. We are told it is not immediately life-threatening. In other words, we're not talking about a heart attack necessarily, but we are talking about something that does require treatment and a full diagnostic evaluation. One last note here, Gotti, and that is that the space station does have quite a bit of medical equipment on board. They have specific medicines, I should say, antibiotics, IVs, for example. They can even do an ultrasound. They can do a cardiac workup. They can do blood work up there, but they are not doctors. They have essentially paramedic type training. So when you have something that requires more treatment, they do need to get back on the ground for a full workup. Gotti, back to you.
Tom Costello, thank you so much. And turning now to the future of AI fraud, and not the kind you might think. Get this, there's this viral post about alleged fraud with delivery apps doing their drivers real dirty on Reddit. Well, it turns out that was actually AI fraud itself. Here's how it all went down.
This is the Reddit post that started to take the internet by storm. Posted by an anonymous user claiming to be an employee of an unnamed food delivery company, it made detailed and explosive accusations of fraud and theft.
There were a bunch of really wild and outrageous allegations,
including that the company was manipulating its algorithm to cruelly exploit low-wage drivers while pocketing tips by generous customers, and that those priority fees for faster deliveries were a scam. Uber's president writing on X that the post is, quote, definitively not about us, and warned people not to trust everything you read on the internet. DoorDash's CEO called the alleged practices appalling, but the viral cat was out of the bag. The post getting over 80,000 upvotes, hitting Reddit's front page, and the comments section blowing up with outraged Redditors. A screenshot of the post on X generating more than 37 million views. Casey Newton is the founder of the Platformer newsletter.
They said that the platform was exploiting drivers by trying to essentially determine how desperate drivers were for money and paying them less because they knew that they would take the money anyway. And once I saw those things, I thought, I want to get to the bottom of this.
He wasn't alone. NBC News also started digging.
when we reached out, an NBC News reporter, in order to prove her identity as a journalist, sent the user a photo of her ID, her employee ID.
This is a picture of the badge one of our colleagues sent to the Reddit poster. Around the same time, the anonymous poster offered Newton proof of his employment.
Basically said, if I shared an employee badge with you, would that be enough? I'm going to blur out my name and photo, but I'm at least willing to do that much. And I thought, well, again, any piece of information I get from you could potentially help me build trust in what you're telling me, so let's go for it.
This is the image the poster sent him. Look familiar? Apparently, they'd been sending this to journalists who'd reached out about the Reddit post.
I would later learn that it had been generated by AI.
Newton says the Reddit poster gave him what he claimed was an 18-page internal Uber memo, each page marked confidential.
It was sort of a cartoon villains document about how you would exploit a human being to the absolute maximum.
But Casey spotted strange formatting and language in the document, and it seemed to back up each and every one of the Reddit poster's claims. He started to suspect the whole thing was a hoax.
It fell apart bit by bit.
When he confronted the so-called whistleblower, they deleted their accounts and went dark. The original post was removed by Reddit moderators.
And that's where I think that AI becomes a part of the story, because up until very recently, the document and the image that this man sent me would have taken many, many hours at least to produce. I suspect he was able to generate both of these things within seconds to minutes.
Like that phony ID. A spokesperson for Uber confirmed to NBC News that Uber Eats doesn't even use employee badges.
And so that just speaks to the world that we're moving into.
A lot of these social platforms have just evolved into cesspools of slop and disinformation. As our verification technologies get better, the deepfakes will also get better. So it's really just a race.
A sign of the times. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. But until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now.
Yeah, and they are calling it Operation Oregon, according to sources with NBC News. To give you a bit of a timeline here as to when this all happened, it happened this afternoon, starting at about 2:18 this afternoon near Adventist Health at 102nd and Southeast Main. That was when police got a report of a shooting. Then roughly 3 miles away to the east at about 2:24, a man called for help. Officers arrived. They found 2 people shot. According to NBC News sources, a 33-year-old male, 32-year-old woman. At this point, we do not know their conditions. We do not know where they're being treated. Right now, the FBI is investigating, calling it a situation that involved Customs and Border Protection agents.
Yeah, the FBI calling this an assault, quote, on a federal officer. You can see the map there, the 2 scenes, the shooting scene, and then 146 in Burnside, an apartment complex. Homeland Security saying that actually the 2 people in the car took off in what we understand was a red Toyota from the scene, ended up at what appears to be an apartment complex on East Burnside. That's where that 911 call happened, where police responded and took those 2 to the hospital. Again, no word on their condition this evening, but you can certainly understand the heightened emotion around all of this, given events in Minneapolis just over 24 hours ago, where an ICE agent shot a 37-year-old woman. That investigation still ongoing. This investigation in its early stages. And Christine, we should point out, by and large, officials from the federal, state, and local levels all calling for transparency, but more importantly than that, at this point, calm as well.
Right, and we have heard from our Blair Best, from others, many of our reporters that are fanned out across the area, that there are protesters. When we spoke to our reporters in the field, many of those protesters were calm, albeit boisterous at one point, you know, angry, which you can understand, especially coming on the heels of what happened in Minneapolis. I know there are some protesters who are headed to City Hall, some protesters headed to the ICE facility, but as David also mentioned, right now across the board, our city, state officials saying stay calm. Chief of Police Bob Day said that they are hoping that people stay calm and vigilant. Same with our Mayor Keith Wilson, echoing that same message.
What we don't have at this point is, I should say, the condition of the 2 people who were shot. We don't have any context on what federal agents were doing at this medical center, other than to say from NBC News that this was dubbed Operation Oregon, part of a bigger operation, and this was a targeted vehicle spot. Again, they are saying Homeland Security of suspected Venezuelan gang members is there, and that the shooting was defensive, but we have not heard any witness accounts. We have not seen any surveillance video, so, you know, in the ilk of what we've saw in Minnesota 24 hours ago. So right now, there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of heightened emotions. To mention a little bit about what you said here with the mayor and these calls for calm, there are calls for calm, but there are also demands. I want to read a little bit about what Mayor Keith Wilson saying. He said, "I call on ICE to end all operations in Portland until a full investigation can be completed. This undermines effective community-based public safety." He goes on to say, "I call on every Portlander to represent our values and to show up with calm and purpose during this difficult time." And it is. It's a difficult time for our community. It's a difficult time for all of us, considering the context of not only what we've seen in Minnesota, but everything that's transpired in the Rose City, not only in the last few months outside the ICE facility with the tug of war over the National Guard, but also the broader context of what happened in Portland in 2020 with the racial justice protests as well. So that's why we hear these calls for calm repeatedly.
Right, you can understand the sadness, the anger. Right now we want to go out to our Blair Best. She's at one of the 2 locations where this initially started. She is at Northeast 146th Avenue and East Burnside, the second location where a man called police. They showed up, they found 2 people shot. Blair, what can you tell us?
So the crowd has grown throughout the night, and Portland Police liaison officers have showed up. Joining me now live is Sergeant DiMatteo. Sergeant, what is sort of your role here tonight?
So as liaisons, we go out to protest events, community events. Anytime where there's some tension, we try to just talk to people and help de-escalate things.
What are you seeing here tonight? How would you describe what's happening in this neighborhood?
There's a bunch of people who have emotions, so we're just going out and talking to them and seeing if there's anything we can help with, exercising First Amendment rights, or just answering general questions.
What would be your message to protesters tonight?
Just everybody should stay peaceful.
Do you have any fears that might not happen?
There's always the fear that people could not be peaceful. There's also it could be peaceful. So I'm prepared for either one, of which I'm just going to go and talk to people and see what we can do to help.
Okay, Sergeant, thank you so much. That was Sergeant DiMatteo from Portland Police. Just a few minutes ago, I will add, a tow truck has showed up and went underneath the yellow caution tape, and it's towards the back of this apartment building. We can't see what it's doing or what vehicle it's after, but we'll keep you posted with that information. Back to you.
All right, Blair Best on East Burnside there. Thanks, Blair. I want to take you live downtown where we understand the governor, the mayor, and the police chief, among others, are set to hold a news conference any moment now. We should note that while this may provide context about some of what's occurred, the FBI are the ones leading this investigation.
Right, so at this point,
I don't know if the stream can hear me.
I
don't want to interrupt what they're saying.
But we'll continue to learn
but this
more
is the presser, right? Do we have a 2-minute?
So we'll keep tabs on when Portland Police start this press conference. We'll bring it to you live. For now, we're going to go to our Celine Stevens, who's live at City Hall and has had a chance to speak with a number of people, including our city councilors. And you can see behind her, a vigil has started. Celine.
Okay.
Christine, that's right. I spoke with city councilors early, and recently I was speaking with people that are organizing this rally and vigil.
No 2-minute warning yet, right?
Like I mentioned, they're actually just starting to speak. There are people here with candles, and I checked in around 15 minutes or so ago, and there was only maybe around 30 people, and now this crowd has grown to anywhere between maybe 80 to 100 people. There are people here with signs, again, candles just coming forward, and this is all, of course, for the people that were shot by the federal agents earlier today, and so they're going to have this vigil first, I believe, and then rally. And as, I don't know if you can hear, of course, people are currently chanting. I'll let you take a listen. So clearly people are chanting to abolish ICE right now, and protesters were here earlier in the day at City Hall. They're here right now, and people are clearly feeling very passionate at the moment. I don't know if you can see the speaker right now, but again, about 100 people or so on scene right now here at City Hall for the vigil that just started off when I started speaking. And so again, people are out here definitely making their voices heard tonight. But I'm going to toss it back to you guys.
All right, Celine Stevens outside City Hall. If your cameraman can just, or your photographer rather, can just pan that over and keep an eye on that vigil for us. We'd love to just keep that in our sights. The events of this afternoon that a federal agent shot 2 people, obviously drawing a lot of people to City Hall.
And for now, we want to go to the press conference that is starting with Portland Police. Let's listen in.
Well, obviously trying to get organized there. You can see Police Chief Bob Day, the Council President Alana Pertle-Guinea there, some members from the County Commission as well. I'm looking for the mayor. I think he must be there. Multnomah County Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell, some other members of City Council, Candace Avalos, and Governor Tina Kotek here walking up to the podium. So sort of a unified front by city, county, and state officials here. What we're not seeing is federal officials, the FBI leading this investigation. Let's listen in to police spokesperson Mike Bannister.
Thank you for joining us on such short notice. We're here to address the shooting incident involving federal agents in southeast Portland earlier this afternoon. We have a number of speakers, including Mayor Keith Wilson, Governor Tina Kotek, and many others who I will let introduce themselves as they come to the podium. We will begin with Chief Bob Day, who will share some details about the shooting and then some of those remarks of his, and we'll go on from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I want to share just a few details. As you're aware, it's still a very active investigation, so information is limited and won't be speaking to a lot of specifics. But what I can say is that Approximately 2:18 this afternoon, Portland police officers responded to the 10,000 block of Southeast Main Street on the report of a shooting. So they came in via a 911 call. Officers confirmed that federal agents had been involved in a shooting. Portland police were not involved in that incident. About 6 minutes later, at 2:24 p.m., officers received information, once again through dispatch, that a man who had been shot was calling and requesting help in the area of Northeast 146th and East Burnside. Our officers responded. We found a male and a female with apparent gunshot wounds. Officers applied a tourniquet and summoned emergency medical personnel. The patients were transported to local hospital, and their conditions at this time are unknown. Officers had determined that the two people who were injured in the shooting involving the federal agents from the earlier call. PPB officers secured both scenes, and this is a federal investigation. It's being led by the FBI. We have been in touch with them. We are in regular contact. This is their responsibility, but when we have these type of events happen in the city, Portland Police Bureau does offer a level of assistance. This is not any way, shape, or form immigration related on our end. We do not know the facts of this case. We are simply providing that traditional investigative support and perimeter support, which is minimal, but I do want to make it clear that we are out there, but we are not involved in immigration. And we at this time do not know if this is an immigration-related event. We do not know which federal agencies were involved. As we know, there are many federal agencies serving in the city of Portland right now. So as I said, it's a complex situation with a lot of different information coming out. But Portland Police is on the scene, detectives, etc. I want to say, that I'm saddened that we are here once again in a difficult, challenging, complex situation. But I'm also incredibly grateful for Portlanders. I'm grateful for the way that we have continued to show up over the past year, and we have certainly been tested. And this is no small circumstance. The uncertainty and the fear and the sadness within our community is real. And as the Chief Law Enforcement of the City of Portland, I recognize that. Our members recognize that. And we are doing everything in our power to maintain that level of peace and calm and safety. And I want to thank Portlanders who have continued to show up in this space as well, and hopeful that they will do so over the next couple of days, as I'm expecting many to want to express their frustration and disappointment with events today. As I said, this is early on. We do not know the cause, but we are engaged, and hopefully we'll have more information as the evening unfolds. I'm going to turn it over now to Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Chief. And I just want to also just reiterate what he had talked about the city standing tall and really standing together. And I've been before you already too many times under these circumstances, but I'm grateful that every time I do make the call within such a short period of time, that the Madam Governor will answer the call, and all of the individuals standing behind me and all of our elected officials and community leaders are standing with us as well. And we've always stood together, and we will continue to stand together. Just one day after the horrific violence in Minnesota, our community here in Portland was witness to a moment of fear, confusion, and heartbreak. Earlier this afternoon, 2 people were shot and injured by federal agents in the Hazelwood neighborhood. Violence in our community is devastating. These are not statistics. These are human beings. Portland is not a training ground for militarized agents. When the administration talks about using full force, we are seeing what it means on our streets. The consequences are not abstract. They are felt in hospital rooms and living rooms, in the quiet moments when families try to make sense of what happened, what is happening. We know what the federal government says happened here. There was a time when we could take them at their word. That time is long past. That is why we are calling on ICE to halt all operations in Portland until a full and independent investigation can take place. Our community deserves answers. Our community deserves accountability. And most of all, our community deserves peace. Earlier today, I spoke with Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. We shared not just our concerns, but our grief for the families who are suffering and grief for the recklessness of our federal government. The administration is trying to divide us, to pit communities against one another, to make us fear one another. Portland. This is a moment to hold each other close, to stand together, to remember that our strength has always come from community, compassion, and solidarity. Yesterday, Governor Walz made an appeal to all of us. Today, I want to say clearly that we stand with Minneapolis, we stand with Minnesota, we stand with Chicago, we stand with LA. We stand with every community that is hurting in our nation, every family that is afraid, every person who feels unseen or unheard. ICE agents and their Homeland Security leadership must fully be investigated and held responsible for the violence inflicted on the American people in Minnesota, in Portland, and in all the communities across America. The Federal Protective Service claims values such as service, integrity, honor, and vigilance. This is the moment to live those values, not behind masks, not through intimidation, but through transparency, accountability, and most of all, humanity. So thank you. I'd like to turn it over to the governor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Day. Good evening, Oregonians. We are standing here today united as a state, wanting peace and safety in our communities. We are all shaken and outraged by another terrible, unnecessary, violent event instigated by the reckless agenda of the Trump administration. This time in our own state, in our largest city, coming just one day after the tragedy in Minnesota. While the details of the incident remain limited, one thing is very clear. When a president endorses tearing families apart and attempts to govern through fear and hate rather than shared values, you foster an environment of lawlessness and recklessness. Trust is essential to maintaining community safety and the rule of law. Federal agents at the direction of the Department of Homeland Security are shattering trust. They are hurting people and they are destroying day by day what we hold dear, our sense of safety, and our literal safety are severely undermined by what happened this afternoon in Portland. I'm so thankful that no one died and more people weren't hurt. The Attorney General and other leaders have been clear about our concerns with the excessive use of force by federal agents in Portland. And today's incident only heightens the need for transparency and accountability. Oregonians deserve clear answers. And I am aligned with the mayor. The priority right now is a full, completed investigation, not more detentions. My message to the federal government is this: we demand transparency. We demand your cooperation with Portland Police and the Multnomah County DA, because we need to investigate this incident efficiently and effectively so we can rebuild trust with our nation's government. There are those who want to cause chaos, but Oregonians know how to stand up and speak out peacefully. We must remain united in peaceful opposition to efforts to tear our community apart. We must not turn against each other. We must stand neighbor to neighbor. We must not take the bait. And I want to end by saying I'm grateful to the first responders who have been managing this incident today here in Portland. And I stand and we stand united with Americans across our country and with Minneapolis and Minnesota in light of these very troubling events. Thank you. I'd now like to hand over the podium to Senator Casey Jama, Democratic leader in the Oregon Senate.
And you have been listening to a press conference being held in Portland, Oregon, by local officials there. You just heard the mayor speak of Portland, Oregon. You heard the governor speak. This is in response to the recent shooting of 2 people in Portland by federal authorities during some sort of immigration operation. DHS saying that those officers were acting in self-defense when they opened fire. And as you heard from the governor and the mayor there, they are protesting the presence of federal authorities and ICE in their state, in their city. But for now, we are going to rejoin Top Story in progress.
Clear.
That work okay, Lise? Are we into Top Story clean? Okay, we're into... Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for the line. I couldn't get it in fast enough. Thanks, good night. All right. Okay, let's see. Just to wrap up, 6:21. Man, we hung out for quite a while, huh? All right, if you guys want, you can watch Top Story right now on NBC News Now, which is streaming all the time. And let's see. Interesting. Yeah, read. It is very, very crazy. This is what we do every single night, and now we all get to hang out together. So thank you guys so much for watching the stream, and we will be back here tomorrow. Start a little bit early so we can chat. Shout out to everybody that makes this show happen as everybody leaves. Hi, Kate. Thank you. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.